Dashirade and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, guests, participants, and everyone who have come here today for the 3-day festival on the legacy of Tibet. Organized by Tibet House, the Culture Center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It is our honor to have Padma Vibhushan Dr. Kapila Vatsayanji, Vice Chairman, Governing Council, Tibet House Society, and Padma Bhushan Professor Lokesh Chandraji, former President, Indian Council for Cultural Relations, with us today on this occasion. May I request our chief guest and our keynote speaker and our director to to come up on the dais.
I should share? Yes.
मेरा कौन सा है? मेरा
Lokesh ji ka?
नहीं. Oh yes, thank you.
May I now request our director, Venerable Bishop Tampula, to welcome our chief guest, Dr. Kapila Vatsayanji, and keynote speaker, Professor Lokesh Chandraji, with a traditional Tibetan scarf and a souvenir.
And you have to say, tell us what is the president.
कहाँ लगा रखा है? दीपक लाना
Dr. Kapila ji, thank you so much.
This also. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What is this?
His Holiness is
His Holiness is what?
Dr. Lokesh. Dr. Lokesh. Dr. Lokesh here.
Oh, sure, we are there.
Oh,
Huh? Okay.
respect है.
Thank you, sir. To begin with, I would like to give you a brief overview of Tibet House. Tibet House, the culture center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, was founded in 1965 by His Holiness the Dalai Lama to preserve and disseminate the unique cultural heritage of Tibet and to provide a center for Tibetan and Buddhist studies. Tibet House also has a museum of valuable Tibetan art and artifacts, as well as a library with over 5,000 volumes of manuscripts and books. A conference hall where weekly philosophy classes and monthly lectures are held. Tibet House offers incentives and resources for research and translation projects and publishes important texts. It organizes lectures, conferences, exhibitions, film screenings, and festivals like today throughout the year. These programs mainly focus on Indian and Tibetan Buddhist history, religion, philosophy, art, history, literature, and culture, and bear witness to the vital and evolving heritage of the Tibetan people. With Tibetan culture is seen in various facets, its uniqueness lies in the richness of compassion grounded on the wisdom of interdependency. So today, this three-day festival on legacy of Tibet will be marked by the inaugural address on Gupta Empire and Tibet State by Professor Lokesh Chandraji. The festival also had varied events such as lectures on numerous intellectual aspects of Tibetan culture, panel discussions on important topics such as quantum physics and Buddhist philosophy of emptiness, while a live demonstration and exhibition on Thangka paintings and Tibetan calligraphy and different Tibetan stalls. This festival will give you a panoramic view of Tibetan culture in just 3 days. So without taking much time, may I now request our director, Venerable Gishi Abdullah, to address the gathering.
Our respected Dr. Kapil Visanji, a leading scholar of Indian arts and who is also the founding director of Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts. And we have a great scholar, a renowned scholar, the director of International Academy of Indian Culture and a former president of Indian Council for Cultural Relations, Professor Lokesh Chandraji. And then, in fact, we invited Mr. M.K. Raskotaraji, the former Indian Foreign Secretary, and because of his a little ill health, he could not be here. And so basically, it is a great joy for us to remember Tibet, pertaining to its legacies for the world. And Tibet House, as the Secretary very clearly indicated of the agendas, the purpose, and so forth, to keep it very concise, we have Mr. Logeshi, Dr. Logeshi, who we requested to give the inaugural address on the Tibetan legacy, and particularly pertaining to the truth of Tibet, and he being one of the greatest living scholars on Tibet, Buddhism, and the Indic traditions, and his passion to always speak the truth. This is something so unique, and here he very kindly accepted to deliver this inaugural address. So we have him, and I want to keep it very short here. So basically, the legacy of Tibet. In fact, pre-7th century AD, Songtsen Gampo, the king of Tibet, Songtsen Gampo then, pre-7th century AD, Tibet was not really, to be very honest, Tibet was not really as sophisticated in terms of culture, sophisticated in terms of language, literature, and so forth. It was more, I'll say, very simple and a very simple place. And of course, with the advent of Buddhism in Tibet, initially entered in Tibet in 7th century and then started to take root in the 8th century AD. So there then the culture becomes so rich, Tibetan culture, it becomes so rich. So now, what is the culture? What's the culture? What's the legacy of Tibet? This question. Tibetan youngsters, particularly Tibetan youngsters, I would say that this is something extremely important for the Tibetan youngsters to know what's the legacy of Tibet and what exactly does it mean by the culture of Tibet. Oftentimes, we are not able to convey the correct message as to what the Tibetan culture is, and the Tibetan youngsters, they make an impression that, okay, say, we are against China. This is one thing that frequently hits their mind, And this is what Tibet is. And then if somebody asks more deeply, how, in what way Tibet is independent identity, then I don't think that Tibetan youngsters, to what extent they really know. This is a very serious matter. So it is for this reason that we invited Dr. Kapilaji, because she's the one who knows about Tibet's expert on Asia, expert on Tibet, the arts and so forth, and Dr. Lokesh, a very renowned scholar on Tibetan Buddhism and about the secular, the state of Tibet. So in fact, I was really expecting Tibetan youngsters to join this program more, and then it coincides to be Friday, so they have their own college, university, the studies there, classes there, so it's one thing. So now the legacy of Tibet is more than what the Tibetan youngsters project or they see. We see that somebody who is a very dignified person, dignified citizen of the world, from anywhere in the world, what do they see of a culture? So here, Tibet is naturally became more compassionate and gentle, as opposed to being very aggressive. Otherwise, before the was here. So the culture is more the sophistication of the thought processes, the cognitive thought processes, which then mellow down the affective thought processes in terms of understanding and the sympathy, empathy, and so forth. So there is a tremendous whole genre of the literature is available there, and the content matters of these are really represented with the thought processes and the day-to-day living style of the Tibetans. Okay. So now, we see that, and today we're extremely fortunate, despite the heavy transition that took place in 1959. The Tibetans, they have to flee their own homeland and to refuge in India, particularly in India, and so despite this heavy transition. And so many things get lost in homeland, but we still have His Holiness the Dalai Lama as the legacy embodiment of Tibet. So now, seeing what truly is being treasured, valued by His the thought processes, the sophistication of the thought processes, that is something which is not to be forgotten. So with this, we see that His Holiness the Dalai Lama emphasizes so much on the culture, on the various aspects. So
The Tibet House has been taking this responsibility for the last, the many years. And the Venerable Dupu Rinpoche, the former director of Tibet House, in his own capacity, he did his best. In fact, he lifted the Tibet House to a great state of its evolution. And from there, we took on. So this is what we're doing. So this the legacy of Tibet, which the festival, 3-day festival. So this comprises of very holistic picture of what a true culture of Tibet is. So for example, say the Inaugural, we have Dr. Kabilaji who will present you about Tibet House, the visions of His Holiness for the world and for the Tibetans, Indians, and then what Tibet House is expected to do, and then Dr. Louis will speak about the Tibet on the basis of the historical facts. And then after this we have, as the Secretary very clearly indicated, various programs, and we have, say, the culture in terms of the thought processes. So for that matter, a very sophisticated thought processes which Tibet inherited from India. As a part of that, to demonstrate that, we have several conferences between the quantum physics and Buddhist philosophy, and between the neuroscience, the psychology, and the Western psychology, Buddhist psychology, and the interdisciplinary dialogues and discussions amongst the various medical systems, including the Tibetan traditional medicine. And then all these rich thought processes, all these rich academic studies implemented on the ground in the form of manifesting compassion to bring about a greater meaning to the society, to the individual. So there we also have conferences and meetings on universal ethics, which is the vision, one of the greatest visions of His Holiness for the world, universal ethics. So we have 2 sessions on universal ethics, and universal ethics for the world. For that, it has so many facets, one of which is the strategic planning of imparting these universal ethics to the world in education, the programs, and so forth. This is one part. Another part is, say, on the ground, how that is to be done. On the ground, the practicalities. And number 3, who are there to embody this basic universal ethics, which should be grounded on compassion and love. So we have several of the invitees here who are being invited to speak of their compassion, their demonstration of compassion towards towards the animals, towards the human beings, and so forth. For example, we have here with us Robinji. Where is Robinji? Over there, Robinji, who is going to speak on the account of the charity that she's involved with, Kranti, to work for the young Tibetan young girls, and who are the children of the people in the Streetlight district places. And then we also have this young girl here, the Nandita, working for the animals and the taking care of the street dogs, and so courageously taking care of on a large scale. And we have, say, the another Reuben also, who I think he is expected to be here, but not here at the moment. And then to bring all these things, what these good people they are doing, and what all these people in the strategic planning of the universal ethics. So what is being done to bring this message worldwide? We have another very important program, which is the Dr. Ravindraji there from Tata Institute of Social Science, Professor Ravindraji. He and his son, Varun, 2 of them are bringing this message of the universal ethics. the worldwide through the Goodness app, Goodness mobile app. So which he's going to speak on this, and let us all join. Let us all join to make this universal ethics, the vision of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, a reality in the world. And then Tibet House, a very important program to make this journey, the journey of the harmony for the world, to make it a reality. Tibet House, we also launched 2016. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we requested His Holiness to kindly launch the Northern Master's Course to really bring about the change within the thought processes of the people, Northern Master's Course, and then the immediate next year, we requested Dr. Kabilaji and Mr. Tembas Tsering and Mr. Murdu Dongchung, them to launch the Northern Dilma course. So this is something the more on a strategic plan to bring about a greater transformation in the thought processes of the people, so that the beings become more compassionate, more harmonious, more sensible. Okay, and then so after this, the inaugural session, so all the remaining programs will all be happening in Tibet House there. So we invite you all to be there, and we have all the participants. It is such a great joy for us to see that you accepted our invitation, and you're going to make this program rich, and all the participants and the audience. I pray that you will reap the maximum benefit out of this. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Vishwa. May I now request Professor Lokesh Chandraji to deliver the keynote address on Gupta Empire and Tibet State. Professor Lokesh Chandraji is the former president of the Indian Council for Cultural Relations (ICCR) and was the chairman of Historical Research. He is a well-known historian and a renowned scholar of Tibetan, Mongolian, and Sino-Japanese Buddhism. He has also served as a member of the Indian Parliament. In 2006, he was conferred with India's Padma Bhushan Award. Professor Lokesh Chandraji.
Dear friends, this is normally since something I'm doing that unfortunately the Tibetan currency notes are dated 233 AD, when an Indian king sent to Tibet what they call the secret, which I think was the Karandya Putra, in which the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra occurs, the golden stupa and many other objects. The idea was that Tibet was the land of gold, and India was very much interested in extending its relations with Tibet on the commercial plane. So the whole this date 233 is a very crucial date in our relations with Tibet. The Tibetan king did not want his ministers to know from where these things had come. So he said that they have fallen from heaven. But there is a very interesting Chojung, a history of Tibetan Buddhism by Nelpa Pandita. And why do I raise this point is that this Chojung, this history, should be published because it begins India's relations with Tibet in the early 3rd century AD. He said that the Indian king sent a Pandita. In Tibetan, Pandita means one who knows Sanskrit. Nelpa Pandita also knew Sanskrit. So in 233 AD, Tibetans had already studied Sanskrit because it was the language used in the court, it was a spoken language. If they wanted any relation, political, commercial, or cultural, they had to know Sanskrit. So he said that Pandit knows him so for India brought these objects. So far, there has not been any study of this aspect. The question is, who could have been the Indian king? My personal opinion is at that time India was under Kushana rule. It was, of course, the final part of the Kushana dynasty in India, but they still had a very important role to play. And the Kushans were interested in their relations with China, with Iran. They were themselves Iranian. They came from Western Iran, and they were also interested in creating relations with different countries, commercial relations. And the Kushans, I think, are the first Indian state who are very active in the promotion of Buddhism in Central Asia. So, now the question arises, what were the relations of the Kushans with the Tibetans? There is a very interesting Bompo map of the world. This map gives Persepolis at the center of the world. A very important point, which was for the first time discussed in what was then known as Leningrad by myself and Kuznetsov in the early 60s. And we felt that this map should be published, and Kuznetsov made a very detailed study of all the states that are represented in this map. And why did the Tibetans think that the center of the world was Persepolis? The Bon religion actually is supposed to have come from Iran. And because it came from Iran, what the Tibetans call the Shangshan kingdom, their relation between Tibet and Iran can now be dated with the help of this map to 200 BC. So the Tibetans were in a state having relations with Iran as early as 200 BC. The question is, when does Tibet come into the view of India? Tibet is mentioned in the Anguttara Nikaya for the first time, not Tibet as such, but the Anavatapta lake, which is the Mansarovar. The Mansarovar is famed in the Buddhist tradition, in the Pali tradition, let us say going back to the 1st century BC and the 1st century AD, as a place which was very good for meditation. The other thing, Ashoka got his coronation water from the Mansarovar lake. How far a fact or not, but that is what the text says. Ashoka got his water for coronation. And all Indian kings used to get their coronation water from the Mansarovar lake. And the other fact that has been mentioned, of course, in later times during the Gupta period, is that Mansarovar was the capital of the god of wealth, Kubera. Kubera is called Kailashanath, the lord of the Mount Kailasha. Why? Because we were getting gold from Tibet. It was a very important part of our trade with Tibet. We used to send to them all kinds of grains, and then all cotton fabrics. India's cotton fabrics have been traded from at least the 2nd millennium BC. We find it on Egyptian mummies, Indian cotton. And in Tibet, this cotton must have gone as a very important item of trade. So as early as the 200 BC, Tibet is already a state, as verified by this Bompo map, a very important map. The Tibetan historians do not take any account of this map or of the Bompo tradition, because the Bompo tradition has to be divided into two historic periods. One is the pre-Terma period, in the 14th and 15th century, when they were discovering texts here and there, actually writing texts. They said they are hidden texts, but they were all texts written in the 14th, 15th century, where Bon religion is being recreated or created in accord, more or less in a parallel line to Buddhism. Kumaragupta is a very important point in Indian history. During Kumaragupta's period, for the first time, the people of Iran, Central Asia, like Bactria and so on, as mentioned by Itzing, they request him that all the monasteries in the northwest in Uttarapath have been destroyed. Create a new monastery of Nalanda. So Kumaragupta created the monastery of Nalanda. And of course, it became a very important center for the whole of East Asia, even for Tibet. Now, Kumaragupta, the court poet of Kumaragupta was Karidasa, and the Kumara Sambhav actually is a celebration of the birth of Kumara. Kumara, what does Kumara signify? Kumara signifies the god of war. People are all the time too enthusiastic to say that we were never a fighting nation. Actually, many of the terms like Kumaragupta, the mention of the peacocks. Peacock actually is the Vahana, the symbol of the god of war, Kumara. It occurs as early as the 1000 BC in the Old Testament. Indians are sending the peacocks to create the city of Jerusalem. The city of Jerusalem was done by the Tamils, South Indian merchants, because in the Old Testament the word used for peacock is the Tamil word for a peacock. So the whole idea of this power, not only bhakti but also shakti, is an important concept to bear in mind in our relationship to Tibet. Today I am not taking the Buddhist, paradigm of our association. I would like to put it more on a secular level. So Kumaragupta, Kalidasa for the first time mentions that Kailasha, the Mount Kailasha, is the abode of Kubera in the Meghaduta. Kalidasa is the only poet who speaks of our relations with Indonesia, who speaks of our war with the Hunas and their destruction, and our war and the defeat of the Persians, whose beards, are beautifully described in the Raghuvansha. And he is the only one who speaks of the Mansarovar Lake as the abode of gold, because that was the major import item for us from Tibet. Another 200 years had to pass, and Sonsen Gampo came on the throne. From the Yarlung area, they shifted to Lhasa. That was an important step in the development of the Tibetan political state. Sonsen Gampo, was very conscious of three things. One was that they should have a script to write. Communications in an evolving from a tribal order into a royal or imperial state was a very important concept which has to be attributed to Sonsen Gampo. For that communication, they had to write the Tibetan language. So he sent Thommi Sambhota to Nalanda. Nalanda was very famous in China. Thommi Sambhota had two queens. One was a queen from China, the other was a queen from Nepal. One was the Gyasa, the other was the Belsa. It's very interesting that I was sitting with Professor Stein in Paris, and he made a very interesting remark that there are two statues of the queens. One is of the Nepalese queen, the other is of the Chinese queen. The Chinese queen looks very much European. How do you explain it? He asked me the question. I said the Chinese emperor did not want to give to Sonsen Gampo a pure imperial Chinese princess. So he gave a Chinese princess whose father was the emperor, but he came from a Tokharian concubine. That is why she has a European face. Tokharians were Europeans who were very powerful in the Chinese political system. So, this queen was a quite interesting figure, And when they were going to construct what was known as the Jokhan, the Nepalese queen was the one who made the Jokhan. They asked the Chinese queen where should she make a temple to the Buddha. The Chinese queen said she should make it on a stream. How could she make a temple on a stream? So the Sonsen Gampo very wisely had the whole thing dried out, filled up, and then she made that Jokhan there. The Jokhan was called Rasa Trul the miracle of Rasa. And outside the temple, they made an image of a goat. Why? Rasa at that time was called Rasa, the city of the goat. The Tibetans, perhaps adored the goats at that time, so they made a big statue of the goat. And for the first time in Tibetan history, the queen, the Nepalese queen, she said, no, it will be Lhasa, the city not of the goats, but the city of the gods. La means a god in Tibetan. So from the city of the goats, Tibet became a city of the gods. The other thing, she founded the Potala. In building is a very important part of the state. When the British came here, they created the Writers' Temple in Calcutta, the first major symbol of the British Empire in India. Stands today, still today. But gradually, it was very difficult to rule in Bengal. Bengalis were very tricky. So they, shifted to Delhi. In Delhi also they wanted to create the Rashtrapati government. You have just to walk and you feel what an imperial structure it is. Ashoka, sent his son and daughter to Sri Lanka to give them Buddhism. And what did he send there? Along with them, he sent they sent artisans and different architects to build a 6-storied palace for the Sri Lankan king. When that palace was built, that was the symbol of the emerging Sri Lankan state. Likewise, in our entire tradition, what represents a king? His palace. That is the eternity of the dynasty, the eternity of the state. So they built in Tibet also, the Nepalese queen said, build the Potala. So she was the founder of the Potala. Why do I say this? The emphasis on Tibet in Tibetan studies is to Buddhism, of course important. But the other thing is, Tibet was always a nation state, which we forget that in India we never had the concept of a nation state. We were small kingdoms. We were a cultural state. We were a cultural nation, not a political nation. It affects the whole happenings in Central Asia in the 8th century when the Arabs invade different states. I don't go into that question today. King Trisong Detsen, after another 200 years pass after Sun Tsen Gampo, he was the son of a Chinese princess. She was a devout Buddhist. What did he do? He sent 2 lakhs of people to conquer China. They actually took the capital Chang'an, what is now known as Xi'an. The Chinese emperor fled that capital. But before undertaking this mission, he had invited Shantarakshita. Shantarakshita went there, and within 3 years, there was a lot of plague in Tibet. They thought that Shantarakshita has not been nice to the local deities, and that they are angry, and that is why we have all these diseases and so on. So Shantarakshita had to leave Tibet and retire into Nepal. But Shantarakshita said, invite Padmasambhava. Why Padmasambhava? Why Padmasambhava is a question. Padmasambhava was married to the sister of Shantarakshita. Padmasambhava, has been seen as a legendary figure. I always try to see things on three levels. The fact, what was the fact behind the legend, and how is that legend interpreted in philosophic terms? So every philosophical perception sometimes has a myth. The myth goes back to a fact. So Padmasambhava was invited by Emperor Tizong Detsen before his attack on China. 2 lakhs of Tibetan soldiers. And the Chinese emperor had to run. So who is Padmasambhava is the question. Because he lays the foundations of Buddhism in Tibet. Padmasambhava, the king of Kanchi, Indrabhuti, did not have a son. He wanted the dynasty to continue. So he set out in search of a founding son who could inherit the kingdom of Kanchi. Indrabhuti goes there on what they call the Chintamani horse. Now, in Tibet, how do they illustrate the Chintamani horse? They have a horse and Chintamani is put on the saddle of the horse. Actually, the whole word Chintamani has to be expressed in terms of horsemanship. And Chintamani horse is described in the Ashwayurveda, text dealing on horsemanship in Sanskrit. These texts have never been read, so many of the interpretations in history go wrong. Texts on architecture, texts on horsemanship, texts on warfare. They think Sanskrit is only a religious language. It was a total culture, a total civilization. So you have to read this. So what was Chintamani? Chintamani was a horse that came from what is now known as Fargana, Central Asian horse. They were tall horses. So when the Indian kings went to these different islands, the tribals, fought back. They didn't want intrusion. They fought back. And these high horses were a strategic advantage to them. So Indrabhuti goes with such a Central Asian horse. And in an island called Chamara, near Sri Lanka, he finds Padmasambhava, brings him to Kanchi, trains him as a crown prince. This training gives him the idea of institutionalizing of concepts, how things can function on a long time interval. So but he didn't like this life. He was a wandering child, wandering and wandering somewhere. So he left the palace, went to Nagarjunakonda to meditate. There was a Sri Lankan monastery in Nagarjunakonda. He had come from an island near Sri Lanka. So he went there, meditated, and learned the tantric practices, which are very important. And he learned Vajrayana in Nagarjunakonda. Nagarjunakonda was a very important center of Vajrayana. Then he left that, went to Sahor. Sahor now has been taken by the Tibetans to be Ravelsar near Mandi. Actually, it is not there. To this day, there is a village called Sahor in Bengal, where somebody should go and see if there are any Buddhist remains. There he married the sister of Shantarakshita. She was the princess of Sahor. Then he went to Nepal. From Nepal, he went to Tibet. So the Emperor Tizong Detsen invited him. And what did he do in Tibet? The first thing he did was to interiorize the local deities. He said all the local deities we accept in Buddhism. They are dharmapalas. So all the sadhak, they became dharmapalas. So that friction between Buddhism and the local practices, that was eliminated. Something, which reminds me of his training as a crown prince. A king has to, synthesize a lot of, conflicting interests. The other thing, He said now there must be a monastery, otherwise how will Buddhism function? So he created the Samye monastery on the basis of Udantapuri in Bengal. And this monastery existed till very recent times. Of course, the Chinese have destroyed it, now they have rebuilt it. Then he said that monks have to be trained. So 7 monks were ordained by Shantarakshita. So this system was created, a monastery institution was created. It had to be manned by people who would function, activate the monastery, dynamize the monastery. So 7 monks were ordained, Tibetan monks were ordained by Shantarakshita. Then he said, we must send the 5th step. He said we must send Tibetan scholars to India to learn Sanskrit. So Tibetans came to India to learn Sanskrit. The last step was a school for the study and translation of Sanskrit texts that was created at Samye. So when all these 5 steps were taken, Samye was, the glorious expression of Buddhism in Tibet. The emperor was extremely delighted. And the Pema Kathan, the life of Padmasambhava, preserves the song he sang. It's a beautiful song. I would like to read out its English translation. Gold, silver, copper, lead and iron are the 5 metals found in this land of mine. Mustard, barley, peas, beans, and wheat are the 5 grains we are accustomed to eat. Neither heat nor cold does the climate bring to the country of which I am the king. With great toil have I gathered this treasure, and I am happy to spend without measure in spreading the faith of the Buddha gleaned from the land of India. The temple prayer flags are so fine, the sun complains it dare not shine. The birds object that they cannot fly, the flags on the temple are jammed too high. This temple, not built by human hand, has grown by itself from our sacred land. I wish the Samye monastery is created in India. Why? The Tibetans should come to see where the Samye monastery was. The Tibetans say that the pure land or the heaven of Padmasambhava is the copper-colored noble mountain. It's a wrong translation of a Sanskrit word. Noble mountain is Shri Parvata. That was the name of Nagarjuna Konda. We have about 4 or 5 inscriptions of the Ikshvaku dynasty. We have 2 Sri Lankan inscriptions to testify that Nagarjuna Konda was the Shri Parvata. There was another Shaiva place called Sri Shaila. That was in a different area, but then Sri Parvata was the Buddhist place, mountain. Tamraparni is the name of Ceylon. In Greek it is called Taprobane. Tamraparni did not make any sense. Tamra means copper, Parna means leaf. Copper leaf didn't make any sense. So the Tibetans said it must be Tamravarni, copper colored. So they said the copper colored noble mountain. Actually it means the Sri Lankan Sri Parvata. The Sri Parvata monastery of the Sri Lankan monks at Sri Parvata. Actually, we should have a Samye created there where the Tibetans can come and for pilgrimage. The identity of Tibet has to be sustained. Perhaps pilgrimage may be a ruse to sustain that identity. Ruse, I'm using a special word. Because the Chinese government permits Indians to go for pilgrimage to Mansarowar. Perhaps they can permit their citizens also to come to India to some way created in Nagarjuna Konda for pilgrimage. The other songs, 3 day songs in 800, around 800. He felt that the Tibetan Sanskrit texts are being translated at random. The words are not, there is no fixed terminology. So he made, he called a major conference to discuss all these matters. Cultural matters, military matters, matters of tribute. Culture and Shakti and Bhakti go together. My main emphasis, is the Shakti and Bhakti paradigm. Among these, there were Bactrians. Why did the Bactrians come? The Tibetans had relations with the Iranians from very ancient times. These relations continued, I think, even under the Kushana Empire. And then they 233 on their currency till they were free, let us say till 1950. Also celebrates the relationship with the Kushan state. So these Bactrians came, and the king said, now collect all the sutras, and they have catalogue of these sutras still survives, worked and beautifully annotated by Mademoiselle Ladoux of Paris. And then they said, now fix the terminology. For fixing this terminology, we have the Mahavitpatti. Beautiful. I always wondered, it's so beautifully, classified. A European mind of the Bactrians. That classification. Wonderful classification. And then the Bactrians, what did they bring? Lamas wear those big caps like Roman generals. I think they come from the period of 3 days, something when the Bactrians came to fix the terminology for the translation of Sanskrit texts into Tibetan. The Epic of Geser is Kaiser in German, Caesar in English, in Latin. English pronunciation is Caesar, but the Latin pronunciation Kaiser. Kesar in Nepal, for example. So this idea of the Geser epic should also go back to these Bactrians who had brought to a final end how the texts have to be translated. And what the work done, this glossary was completed in 814 and continued to condition the Tibetan translations up to the period of the 5th Dalai Lama in the 17th century. For the last important text to be translated was the Avadhana Kalpalata. Beautiful thankas of this. I think the most beautiful thankas of this. This work is by a Kashmiri author, Kshemendra. The most beautiful thankas now are in the Imperial Palace in Beijing. I hope the government of China has given millions of yuan for the identification of these thankas. 31 thankas. One central, 16, they make 33 thankas. 16 plus 1 in the center. So the only Kashmirian author to be depicted anywhere in the world, Kshemendra, his thankas now exist. Of course, the Tibetans also must be having them. Interesting that as late as the Rajatarangini, they speak of the Tibetans. Rajatarangini is an 11th century history of Kashmir. Atisha's visit to Tibet. Again a very important point. The Tibetans felt that their religion is going down because there was a assassination of all the Tibetans and monks and the desecration of Buddhism by Langdharma. So Atisha was invited. When Atisha went there, he saw the Tibetan lamas in gorgeous dresses. He said, no, this is not the way to dress. A lama shouldn't dress in silk. a Tibetan, a Buddhist monk should not dress in silk. And he came to Tholing. Tholing is the only monastery in western Tibet which has the art of Kashmir. Only monastery. And then, he also made a lot of corrections in the early Tibetan translations. And then he translated many new texts, introduced the worship of goddess Tara in Tibet. Tara, the two queens of Emperor Songtsen Gampo, are supposed to have been the incarnation of what they call the green Tara and the white Tara. Green Tara actually is the Shyam Tara. Shyam means Savli Tara, not green Savli, as compared to the Chinese who must have been fair. And she was a Tokharian princess according to me. So, and then he went to Samye. And when he went there, he said, "Why have you invited me? You are so learned. You have so many Sanskrit texts here which we don't have in India." He was stunned to see the manuscript collections at Samye. Then he passed away in 1054. His remains are in the Nethang stupa. Professor Tucci used to say that this stupa should be excavated because there we will find his tanka of goddess Tara. Because that would be one of the finest pieces of Pala art of India. And the third copy of this, of course, is in the Musée Tibet, but perhaps more Tibetanized. So the original the tanka of goddess Tara should be in the Nethang stupa. So very important for the history of Pala art in India. Crossing over another 200 years, the Mongols invaded Tibet. Tibetans they retreated, but they had to give them tribute. The Tibetans thought Chinggis Khan is gone, they now no need to pay them. Tibet, Godan invaded Tibet. Godan was, then he met the Sakya Pandita. He was so fascinated by him that he called him to his court. Sakya Pandita is one of the very important masters of Sanskrit in Tibet. He for the first time introduced non-Tibetan, non-Buddhist texts into Tibet. For example, the art of writing poetry, the art of medicine and so on. A lot of secular texts translated into Tibetan. And he said, and he read Sanskrit. For the first time, he wrote meaty texts in Sanskrit, in Tibetan, based on the Sanskrit text. So Sakya Pandita went to Godan, converted Godan to Buddhism. That is how Buddhism spread from Tibet. Tibet became a relay point in the expanse of Buddhism from Tibet to Mongolia, from Mongolia to Buryatia, and from Buryatia to Tanituva, which is the last Turkish Buddhist state. Because the earlier period, the Turks were Buddhists. The Uyghurs, who were Buddhists in ancient times, they translated the Kanjur into Turkish, Old Turkish, and that is still in the Sakya monastery in a stupa, the oldest Turkish document we have. Actually, it should be exhumed and studied. Sakya Pandita died, so he was replaced by his nephew, Pagspa. Pagspa was only 19 years old when he went to the court of Kublai Khan. Kublai Khan, gave him the title of Prince of Indian Deities. Indian deities from where they derived inspiration for their victories. Kublai Khan conquered South China and united the North and South China for the first time, and ever since China is one territory. But before invading China, he conducted the rites of Mahakala. You know, the ancient cry of the Rajputs was Jai Mahakal. So the ancient war cry was Jai Mahakal. So he renewed that ancient cry and worshipped Mahakala. And this Mahakala, was sought all the while from the 13th century up to the 19th century by different Mongol kings and chieftains. Now this Pakspa was very much admired by Kublai Khan. But Kublai Khan in 1286 wanted to attack India. Kublai Khan is the only Yuan emperor who conquered what is now known as Yunnan. Yunnan was a Thai territory. Thai tribes used to live in Yunnan. When Yunnan was Yunnan was invaded by Kublai Khan, these Tang tribes some came to India, became what was known as the Ahom kings, Assam. They were the Shan tribes. They became the Shan tribes in Burma. They came down to what is now known as Thailand. So, if he had invaded India, what had been our destiny, we do not know. So the Urgen Senge of Sakya wrote a long poem to Kublai Khan that do not invade India. I think that was in Tibet's great gift to India. And Tibet, was always our great friend, and I think we also have been great friends of Tibet. Now coming, the translators, Lotsava. What is the meaning of Lotsava? It's interesting. It's a very interesting word in Tibetan. We don't have a counterpart in Sanskrit. Lotsava, when they translated in Tibet, they had the Indian Pandita. They are called Lotsava. Lo and Pandita is Pan, Lopan. So the Pandita, translated the text, but the finishing of the style was done by the Lotsava. Lotsava is from the Sanskrit root Luch. Luch means ruch, to shine. The same word which you have in Persian, Roshan. Roshan Lal. So ruch is to shine, who shone the text to its full beauty, grandeur, dignity, and sophistication. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Logesh Chandraji, for a very profound speech and clarifying many concepts which we are not aware of and proving that Tibet is an independent state. May I now request Dr. Kapila Vatsayanji to address the gathering.
Dr. Yogesh and the director of the Tibet House. As all of you have been, I'm being spellbound by what my brother Education has said. He brings a mountain of not only scholarship but also of perception in this whole intellectual philosophical terrain. I don't think that I am very competent to comment on the vast spectrum that he has laid out before us. I can only say that I have admired both his scholarship and his personality for many decades. I've had the privilege of slightly knowing his father, Dr. Raghuveer, and he carries the legacy of his father forward. I remember an episode, not an episode, a conversation, when Dr. Raghuveer was going to Tibet. He came to Pandit Nehru, and I happened to be in the ministry, and he asked him for some excess baggage voucher. So inexperienced as I was, I gave Dr. Raghuveer this excess work. I think it was 100 or something. He went to Panditji and he said, ये पागल लड़की इसको कुछ नहीं आता मैं जा रहा हूँ तिब्बत मैं ये 10 किलो या 100 किलो मैं I will bring back donkey loads of material and what I want is an open voucher. I remember this episode as a very young person who joined the government of India, and this conversation in terms of Dr. Raghuveer and Mr. Nehru. Why? Because I think we owe it to Dr. Raghuveer and of course his illustrious son now for bringing to this country the hidden and not so hidden treasures of Tibetan Buddhism. Their contribution was of Dr. Raghuveer and now Dr. Lokeshwar is monumental, it is unique, and if you will permit me to say so, I don't know how many disciples he has made. I think that is where the need is of the art. That how many scholars do we have who are doing serious study of Tibetan Buddhism. Just, I'm not very sure, and I hope that I am wrong, that the university system in India is not paying attention or not paying enough attention. And all these studies are mainly field-centered, and whatever has been done in the Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Studies by my friends Rinpoche and what is being done in the 3 or 4 monasteries in South India. I think that apart from occasions like this, for which we have to all thank him and pay ourselves for admiration, what I have to address to you is that you see, Tibetan studies are still in the periphery of the intellectual journey of India. This is highly undesirable because our university system and so on, I think there are very few Tibetan scholars. Luckily, would know better, but in my understanding, apart from the very valuable work of his center and what you're doing in Tibet House, I don't think, and I hope I'm totally wrong, that the university system in India is paying enough attention to children studies. I don't know if you will know better. The richness and the depth, and I think also the spread of Tibetan Buddhism in different parts of not only Asia but other countries has been so valuable and magnificent that the intellectual system or the intellectual journey of younger scholars in the university system and outside the university system has not paid enough attention. I don't know, I hope I'm wrong. You see, one can only praise, and I have known him as a brother. We have to produce more than Dr. Location does. One or two location does with drugs, I don't know, he will tell us if he is passing on the legacy of his monumental scholarship. Each time I hear him, I am really amazed and impressed. So, Lucas, is there a younger generation that you are nurturing? You have to tell us.
People are not interested. They want only projects. They don't want to do research, they do want projects.
They don't want
Projects
projects.
only.
There you are. I will say that I'm sorry to sound somewhat pessimistic, but I think that the university system to which I have belonged for many decades is almost zero on this. Unbelievable. And the university, outside the university system, of course, you have Dr. Education, and you have the institute with which I've been involved for many decades, the Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Studies, and the work of Rinpoche and others. Apart from the depths with which he has spoken, I think we have to address ourselves to how does this intellectual and deep experience permeates or at least is becomes an acquaintance of what we call the modern educational system. Zero. Sorry to be pessimistic, I don't know you will correct me, but the intellectual system. It's not the intellectual whatever the university system, to be precise, is not paying attention to this great intellectual and deep stream of reflection of this country and of Tibet. The Tibet House is doing very fine, and I'd like to congratulate and felicitate some of the earlier directors and now our young directors here. But I think, if you don't mind my saying so, you have also to reach out and assist them to the university system. Because as it happens, I think their orientation is once again, not once again, it is in the Western systems of thought. And there's a great deal of work to be done. And all the work that you're doing is wonderful, and what the Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Studies is doing, and which I've been involved for many decades, and your other institutes in South India. But I think that much more needs to be done, both for the unity system and how exactly do you have a system, and in which I don't know, of having not, we cannot replicate Dr. education, but your younger scholars visit Indian universities and at least acquaint them with this vast body of not only scholarship or experience. There is very little understanding. This is, I hope I'm wrong. This is not the occasion to make any comments because I am ignorant, and all I can say is that occasions like this are there, and occasions like this acquaint all of you with this holy mountain of scholarship and experience that we have. May Dr. Lokeshwara, along with you and my friend who is no longer in Sardas Rinpoche, nurture a younger generation of the who are involved in the intellectual or the philosophical journey in their academic courses, but so far as I know, not enough attention is being paid to this sector. I shall not demonstrate my ignorance beyond this, except to say that we are all privileged to have a person like Dr. Lokeshwara to address us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kasraji. Tibet House offers a Tibetan language course on a regular basis. There are 4 levels of learning offered at a very nominal fee with a special discount for students and monastics. Till date, 16 batches have been successfully completed. After the successful completion of each batch, we confer certificates to those who have passed the final exam. Many students could not join us today, so I'll read out their names who are present today, and I request them to come on the stage to receive their certificates. May I request Professor Lokesh Chandraji to present the certificates to the students. Mr. Babu Ram Verma. Mr. Ashwin Mehra. Mr. Shuda Siwa. Mr. Arindam Das. Mr. Pradeep Sharma. Mr. Mahesh Rana. Mr. Singhi Damdu. Mr. Vipul Jhinga. Ms. Sakshi Thapiyal. Ms. Sayandani Mukherjee. Mr. Rahul Nagar. Mr. Manjesh Rana. Ms. Utsavi Singh. Mr. Shavad Malik. Ms. Priyadarshini Mehra. Mr. Stenzin Lotus. Mr. Pradyuman Singh.
Saraswati.
Thank you, Professor Lokesh.
Mr. Director, can I make a request if he agrees?
Yes.
That one of the students who have been through this course should speak and tell us what they have got out of it. Should not say it. I'm sorry. Sorry, I thought that you
May I request one of the language student, Mr. Arindam Das, to share his experience on learning the Tibetan language?
like to say what and what is his background and what?
He is associated with the EU.
European.
European
See?
Union. Yeah.
You tell us something about yourself and then why you took the course and what you got out of it.
Good morning, everyone. Tashidere Chamala.
He said the means good morning.
I've been wanting to learn the language since college days, but could never find a source where I could go and sit and learn. So once at work, I met my colleague and was discussing this aspiration of mine with her, and she said, "Oh, why don't you go and go to Tibet House?" So she actually, and she's here in the audience, she got me to Tibet House, and the journey started since then.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Arindam Das, born and brought up in Delhi. Used to work with the European Union delegation, now working with a university in Punjab. Enrolled with the Tibet House Nalanda diploma course, and have been traveling in the Himalayan region and primarily in Dharamshala and other Tibetan settlement areas. I've received a lot of affection from the Tibetan community, and that was one of the primary reasons why I wanted to learn the language, so I could speak with them, connect with my friends, and also get to know what they're talking about me and speaking about me. So, so that was it. So that's. I'm still continuing the language classes, and the experience in Tibet House has been fantastic. I have a fantastic teacher. He's not here now. And Geshe-la has always been there, in person, in spirit, remotely, in class, whenever possible. So, fantastic experience. And those who want to learn the language, I would urge, please come, especially to my Tibetan friends here who probably, because I realized this while I'm doing the class, that the colloquial Tibetan which you all speak, and there's a lot of difference between the classical Tibetan which we are learning and the colloquial Tibetan, which is more impacted by the host country's language. Like you mix Hindi, Tibetan, English, and it becomes something which is like very unfamiliar at times when I am at MT and trying to speak to someone out there. So, anyways, Tuchenang, Geshe-la.
Thank you, Arindamji. May I now request Dr. Kapila Vatsayanji to honor one of our staff who has completed 20 years of service at Tibet House, Mr. Umesh Kurum. Mr. Umesh Kurum has served Tibet House since 1997 and still continues to pay his service to the society. I will request everyone to give him a round of applause. And request Dr. Kapila to honor him with a traditional Tibetan scarf and the video session.
Okay. I will take it.
We have now come to the conclusion of the program, and we would like to pay our deepest gratitude to our chief guest, Dr. Kapila Vatsayanji, and our keynote speaker, Professor Lokesh Chandraji, and all our speakers and audience for taking our time today and come for the event today. Please join us for a high tea at the lobby. And after this, I request everyone to be present at Tibet House at 12 p.m. sharp. And request Dr. Kapila Vatsayanji and Professor Lokesh Chandraji to inaugurate the exhibitions and stalls. And after that, we'll be starting our first lecture session at 12:30 p.m. sharp at Tibet House. The first session is on reincarnation research, current status and possibilities by Dr. Satwan Parisha, Nimans, Bangalore. Thank you, everyone.